What's happening, YouTube? It's Simon for 66 Cards, and today we're going to review the most PSA graded Prizm basketball cards since 2012, and we're going to focus on base and silver cards. Along the way, we're going to look at the trends that are happening and glean some insights from what we see. And if you see any other insights, let me know in the comments down below. So, first off, the top section will be focusing on Prizm base. We're going to do that first. And then the bottom section will be Prizm silver cards, which we'll do second. Starting off in 2012, Prizm base, it is Anthony Davis, just under 3,000 cards sent to PSA. Compared to the numbers we're about to see, that is very, very low. Next is Giannis in 2013 at 5,289. A pretty big jump from the 3,000 in 2012, but I think it's universally accepted that 2012 had a very, very small print run because it was the very first year and they weren't sure how well it was going to do. Moving along to 2014, it is now my guy, Joel Embiid, just under 3,500 cards submitted to PSA for Prizm base. 2015, we have Devin Booker at 4,547. And if you look at these 4 years, they're in a pretty consistent range between right around 3,000 to a little above 5. And 2016 is no different. And in fact, it's actually a little bit lower at 2,500 for Ben Simmons. You will notice that it is a little bit striking and odd to see Ben Simmons having the lowest number compared to 2012. Part of that is because Ben Simmons missed the first year of his career, and similarly, Joel Embiid missed the first 2 years of his career, and that's why relative to 2013 and 2015, their numbers are a little bit lower, because if you're opening a box of cards and you get a card of someone who's not playing that season, or in the case of Embiid, not playing the first 2 seasons, you're less likely to keep that card and or to take care of it well to submit it to PSA. So that's the background on why Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons have lower counts or pop counts in terms of being sent to PSA. You know, that there might be other reasons, but I do believe those are 2 very strong reasons why they are lower. Now, you look at the range here from about 2,500 to just a little bit over 5K. It's been in a pretty tight range. Well, 2017 blows that right up because we've quadrupled that average right around 3,000-4,000 here to 13,000 plus with Jason Tatum in 2017. So if you are looking for a demarcation line as to when print runs blew up, it is right here, right between 2016 and 2017. That is a massive jump, but it won't be the only massive jump because we're going to move to 2018. Here is Luka Doncic at nearly 39,000 submitted to PSA, and this is another tripling, quadrupling, right? From 3,000 to 4,000 to 13,000 to 39,000. These numbers are crazy when you compare it to the first 5 years of Prizm. 2019, we have Zion. That's his year, 42,000 plus. And then when we move to 2020, it's Anthony Edwards at only 15,000. And I can say with a lot of confidence that I would not use these years as proxies for the print runs. I don't think that all of a sudden Panini cut Prizm's print run by nearly a third, which is what you would see if you, what you would think if you compared the pop counts of Zion versus Anthony Edwards, right? That is not the case. We didn't decrease by 50% plus. The reason for this change is because these 3 seasons here, 2017 for Tatum, 2018 for Luka Doncic, 2019 for Zion, were the lead up to the pandemic bubble. And so in 2019 and 2020 and 2021, base cards were all the rage, and any single base card you could find of a rookie you sent in because they were popping off. They were going to the moon. But after PSA had to shut down, Beckett had to shut down, all the grading companies shut down, the prices of these base cards started coming back to earth. And so there was less of a reason to send these base cards in. And even though Anthony Edwards was a big star as the #1 pick, by the time PSA started opening back up, it was 2021, maybe 2022. And so there were not as many, there were not high prices to demand sending them in. So that's what happened here. And then Cade Cunningham, look at his pop count, 3,200. It's right in line with the first 5 years of Prizm. But again, don't take that to mean that, print runs of Prizm dropped 90% from 2019 to 2021, even though that's what it looks like when you compare 42K for Zion versus 3K for Cade. It's also because there was so much more hype around these two guys versus someone like Cade, who's had a decent start to his career, but definitely did not have the Zion hype and the Luka hype, or even the Anthony Edwards hype. 2022, it's Paolo. Again, it's right in that range. There is no longer a huge number being sent to PSA because we have now reached the point where we understand that Prizm base cards are very common, and even in a PSA 10, they're not worth that much because there's so many base cards out there. Except in 2023, when Wemby begins his career. And we are now back at the Zion level. Any and all cards of Wemby are being sent in. It doesn't matter if it is now the 41,000th Prizm base card. You're still sending that in to PSA, or that's what the hobby is doing. And so we are getting a true indicator of the print run with these 3 years, 2018 with Luka, 2019 with Zion, and now Wemby in 2023. And I'm sure this number will keep rising. And if some of these numbers don't match what you see in the PSA pop count, it's because I recorded this video, or I pulled this data actually, in, I'm going to say, early February 2024. I'm not sure when exactly I'm going to release this video. It's part of some evergreen content I'm doing, which you will probably find out why when this video comes out. But nonetheless, I think the point is taken here. These 3 years are more indicative of Panini's print run for Prizm than these 3 intermittent years. So that is Prizm base. What are your thoughts seeing this chart? Do you have any other thoughts besides the ones that I've highlighted? Or do you agree or disagree with the ones I've put forth here for Prizm base? Let me know in the comment section down below. Moving on to PSA graded Prizm silver cards. Look at the pop count for Anthony Davis in 2012. Just over 100. Well, spoiler alert, that is the lowest you will ever see because these numbers get way, way higher. Next year, it's Giannis, just about doubles the 2012 number for Davis. Again, we all know that 2012 was the first year and had the smallest print run, so this is not a surprise. And in fact, the doubling here from 106 to 203, 2,900 to 5,300 is almost a doubling, so this is in line. Next, it's Joel Embiid. Again, we see a fallback from 200 to 172, 5,200 to 3,400, so decreasing back, not quite as much because I think people hold on to their silvers a lot more than their base because of how special they are, right? So that is not too much of a surprise. Next year, it is Jokic and not Devin Booker for Prizm Silver, and I think I know why. And here's my theory. Nikola Jokic was a second-round, slightly chubby Serbian who nobody cared about. And if you were to pull a Nikola Jokic Prizm base card in 2015, 2016, you would ask yourself, oh, well, I don't care about that. This guy's going to be a nobody, and then probably chuck it away. And so that's probably why his Prizm base cards weren't being sent to PSA, because nobody kept them and nobody took care of them. However, a different attitude, I think, is taken when it comes to Prizm silver cards, right? They're refractors, they're different, they're special. And so you're more likely to keep them no matter who they are, just because they look cool, but also they're worth a lot more money, and you'll keep them because there's just less of them. You don't, if you kept every Prizm base card, you'd have a mountain full if you're opening a bunch of wax. Whereas if you keep every Prizm silver card, it's still not that many, right? Because you get one every few packs, I believe, in 2015. So that is the insight that I have here for why Devin Booker is up here, whereas it's Jokic down here. It is basically based off of Jokic being a second-round draft pick who was literally drafted during a Taco Bell commercial, if I remember correctly. And so that is my thoughts on that. 2016, it's still Ben Simmons, 425. We've already explained why his numbers are lower than the rest. 2017, we now see the big jump that we saw in the base, this time in the Prizm Silver. It is a quadrupling from Ben Simmons the year before. And yeah, just on a whole different scale compared to the first 5 years. So that matches quite well. Then we get to Crazy Town with Luka, 5,600. Again, not quite a quadruple from 2017 to 2018. Almost a tripling on the base. So again, following pretty similar trends. 2019 Zion, it is in line with the Luka card here for silver, which is similar to the base situation. 2020 though is where it gets interesting, because remember, we fell dramatically on the Prizm base side with Zion at 42K to Ant going at 15K. That is not the case at all for Prizm Silver in 2020, because Ant has even more Prizm Silver cards than Zion. And this goes back to the whole, we figured out as a hobby that Prizm base were a dime a dozen, and I would actually say a dime a dozen for some of these cards might be a little bit high for some of the rookies that didn't pan out. And so silvers were still being sent in, and we're not being held back like Prizm base, because the hobby still viewed Prizm silvers as valuable, and they were more likely to be sent in while PSA was being shut down because of their higher values, even as the bubble started to pop on the hobby and the dramatic price increases. 2021, you can see now Cade, because he just was not as hyped as these other guys, his numbers come crashing back. And the same is true of Paolo, even though he had a bit of hype, nowhere near the levels of even an Anthony Edwards. And then we go back to Crazy Town with Wemby here, right at the level of Ant in 2023, with Ant in 2020, right around the 6,300 mark, which matches actually what happened with Zion, but not with the base for Anthony Edwards. So those are my thoughts and the numbers. The first 5 years, definitely a much different print run situation for Prizm. 2017, 18, 19 is where it gets crazy. 2020, people stop sending in base and continue to do so until Wemby hits the scene. Whereas people keep on sending their silvers in 2020 because they were still viewed and highly regarded, basically. But in 2021, 2022, Paolo and Cunningham were not viewed as highly, not quite as hyped. The hobby was still coming down from the pandemic peak, but Wemby is now reinvigorating the PSA grade game. So those are my thoughts. What do you think about my insights and the takeaways that I have here? Are there any other factors that I'm missing? Are there any other insights or takeaways that I'm missing? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you as always for listening and watching. I'll talk to you all soon. Cheers.